They had it all: fame, fortune, and luxurious lifestyles. But bad decisions, reckless spending, and legal trouble sent them from Hollywood mansions to financial ruin. And even homelessness. From movie legends to TV superstars, these 25 actors made millions but lost it all. Some blew their fortunes on wild parties, others trusted the wrong people, and a few simply couldn't stop spending. Stick around as we reveal the dumbest actors who went bankrupt and ended up with nothing. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Globewise Entertainment and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on shocking Hollywood stories. Classic Hollywood, Golden Age stars. 1. Judy Garland. Judy Garland was one of the biggest stars of Hollywood's golden age, known for her iconic role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She had a golden voice, millions in earnings, and worldwide fame, but behind the scenes, her life was a heartbreaking tragedy. From a young age, Hollywood controlled her life. Studio executives at MGM forced her to take pills to lose weight, stay awake, and sleep, leading to a lifelong addiction. Though she made millions, bad management, failed marriages, and her own financial struggles drained her fortune. She was often left broke, unable to pay her debts, and even owed massive amounts in unpaid taxes. In her final years, Judy was homeless, couch surfing at friends' places, and struggling to find work. She performed in nightclubs just to make ends meet, sometimes singing for as little as $100 a night. On June 22, 1969, at just 47 years old, she tragically passed away in a rented London apartment from an accidental overdose. Despite once being Hollywood royalty, she died nearly penniless, a sad end for one of the greatest talents in film history. 2. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was once the biggest box office star in the world. A child prodigy, he charmed audiences in the 1930s and 1940s with films like Andy Hardy and National Velvet. At his peak, he was earning millions of dollars, but by the time he passed away in 2014, he was nearly broke and living in a tiny rental home. So, what went wrong? Despite earning over $12 million in his career, equivalent to over $100 million today, Rooney spent recklessly. He lived an extravagant lifestyle, married 8 times, and trusted the wrong people. His family and business managers mismanaged his money, leaving him in financial ruin. In his later years, Mickey Rooney shockingly testified before Congress that he had been a victim of elder abuse and financial exploitation. Even his own family had stolen from him. He died with just $18,000 to his name and was buried in a modest grave, far from the Hollywood glitz he once knew. His story remains a tragic cautionary tale of how even the richest stars can lose everything if they don't protect their wealth. 3. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, the legendary actor who terrified audiences as Dracula, once commanded Hollywood's attention. But behind the eerie cape and hypnotic stare was a man struggling with fame, addiction, and financial ruin. At the height of his career in the 1930s, Lugosi was a superstar. However, unlike his peers, he never secured a long-term contract with major studios. Instead, he took low-paying roles, often in cheap horror films, just to make ends meet. As the years passed, Hollywood moved on, favoring younger stars. Lugosi, desperate for work, took whatever roles he could, even playing ridiculous, low-budget monsters. His financial troubles worsened, and so did his health. Struggling with chronic pain, he turned to morphine and later became addicted. By the 1950s, Lugosi was broke and forgotten. His addiction drained his finances, leaving him dependent on friends. He spent time in a shabby apartment and even in hospitals, where he was treated for drug addiction. In his final years, filmmaker Ed Wood, a fan of his work, gave him small roles in laughably bad movies like Plan 9 from Outer Space. But by then, Lugosi was a shadow of his former self. He died in 1956, penniless, and was buried in his Dracula cape, a haunting reminder of a man whose talent once mesmerized the world but whose life ended in tragedy. 4. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake was once one of Hollywood's most glamorous actresses, known for her signature peekaboo hairstyle and roles in film noir classics like This Gun for Hire and Sullivan's Travels. She was a box office sensation in the 1940s, earning fame and fortune. But behind the scenes, her life was spiraling out of control. Lake had a volatile personality, clashing with co-stars and studio executives. Her drinking problem worsened, leading to missed opportunities and erratic behavior. As Hollywood moved on to new stars, her career faded rapidly. By the 1950s, her money was gone, drained by failed marriages, poor financial management, and alcohol addiction. She disappeared from the spotlight, eventually becoming homeless and working as a bartender in a run-down New York hotel just to survive. Customers barely recognized the once famous star, and when they did, they couldn't believe how far she had fallen. In her later years, she attempted a small comeback but never regained her former glory. She passed away in 1973, at just 50 years old, from complications related to alcoholism, leaving behind a tragic legacy, a Hollywood icon who lost everything. 5. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was Hollywood's ultimate bad boy, a dashing, charismatic star known for roles in The Adventures of Robin Hood and Captain Blood. He lived like the characters he played, wild, reckless, and extravagant. At the height of his fame, Flynn was earning millions, but his lavish lifestyle, endless parties, womanizing, and drinking quickly drained his fortune. He spent money as fast as he made it, on yachts, mansions, gambling, and exotic vacations. Legal troubles followed, including a high-profile trial for statutory rape in 1942 which he was acquitted of, damaging his reputation. As he aged, Flynn's alcoholism and drug use worsened. His acting roles declined, and he found himself deep in debt. By the 1950s, he was broke, selling off his belongings just to survive. Desperate, he even borrowed money from friends to pay for food and rent. In 1959, at just 50 years old, Errol Flynn died nearly penniless in a small apartment in Canada. His body was smuggled back to Hollywood in a cheap casket, a tragic ending for a star who once had it all. A true Hollywood cautionary tale, Flynn lived fast, spent hard, and left behind nothing but a legend. 6. John Barrymore. John Barrymore was once Hollywood royalty, known for his charismatic screen presence and unmatched stage performances. Coming from the famous Barrymore acting dynasty, he earned millions in the early days of cinema, starring in classics like Grand Hotel, 1932, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1920. But behind the fame, Barrymore had a self-destructive love for alcohol and extravagant living. He wasted his fortune on luxury, throwing wild parties, buying yachts, and indulging in a lavish lifestyle he couldn't afford. His drinking spiraled out of control, affecting his memory and performances. As his career declined, so did his finances. He couldn't keep up with multiple failed marriages, legal fees, and unpaid debts. By the late 1930s, the once great actor was broke and struggling to find work. At his lowest point, Barrymore was homeless, relying on the kindness of friends to have a place to stay. His final years were spent in a haze of alcohol, living off handouts and small acting gigs that barely covered his expenses. He died in 1942 at age 60, a tragic symbol of Hollywood excess and self-destruction. His story remains a cautionary tale of how even the brightest stars can fade when fame and fortune are mismanaged. 7. Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds was once one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, known for her iconic roles in Singin' in the Rain and the unsinkable Molly Brown. But despite her fame and fortune, she faced serious financial struggles later in life, ultimately leading to bankruptcy. In the 1980s, Reynolds made the bold move to invest in a casino in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, the business venture proved disastrous, and she lost millions. Her fortune quickly dwindled as she continued to support her family and business ventures. On top of that, her first marriage to Eddie Fisher ended in a highly publicized divorce, and her second marriage to businessman Harry Carl ended in bankruptcy after he racked up huge debts that Reynolds was held responsible for. By the time she reached her 50s, Reynolds was forced to declare bankruptcy. In the 1990s, she was still struggling with debts despite her years of stardom. She had to sell her house and even auction off many of her personal belongings, including her iconic costumes from her movie career. Although she had a successful career resurgence in the 2000s, particularly with her role in Will and Grace, Reynolds never fully recovered financially. She lived modestly in her later years, even facing the threat of homelessness at times due to her mounting debts. Despite these challenges, Reynolds remained a symbol of resilience, continuing to work in Hollywood until her death in 2016. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of how fame and fortune can vanish in an instant due to poor financial decisions and misfortune. 8. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was one of the most talented and beloved entertainers of the 20th century, known for his singing, dancing, acting, and comedic genius. However, despite his incredible success, Davis faced financial troubles that eventually led him to bankruptcy. Throughout his career, Sammy earned millions, but his lifestyle was expensive and his personal life was fraught with challenges. He spent lavishly on gambling, cars, and a variety of indulgences, which led to his financial downfall. At the height of his fame, Davis found himself deeply in debt due to his gambling habits. In addition to his personal spending, Sammy also struggled with the mismanagement of his earnings. While performing with the famous Rat Pack, he trusted the wrong people to handle his finances. He had to deal with mounting legal issues and debts, including tax problems with the IRS, which drained much of his wealth. By the late 1970s, Sammy was forced to declare bankruptcy. His finances were in tatters, and despite his status as a Hollywood legend, he found himself struggling to maintain the lifestyle he had once enjoyed. At one point, he even experienced homelessness, living in hotels and facing extreme financial instability. Despite these hardships, Sammy Davis Jr. never lost his drive to perform. He continued to work and slowly began to rebuild his career, but the impact of his financial mistakes remained a constant reminder of the dangers of excess and poor decision-making. Sammy's story serves as a cautionary tale of how even the most successful stars can fall from grace if they aren't careful with their finances. 9. Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole, one of Hollywood's most iconic actors, captivated audiences with his brilliant performances, especially in Lawrence of Arabia. With multiple Academy Award nominations and a reputation for his commanding screen presence, O'Toole was at the peak of his career. However, behind the glamour, he struggled with personal demons that would lead to his downfall. O'Toole's financial troubles began as he lived a lavish lifestyle, indulging in expensive tastes, parties, and luxury. He was known for his extravagant spending, both on and off the set. Unfortunately, his fondness for alcohol and reckless behavior made managing his finances a challenge. Despite earning millions over the years, his inability to control his spending and his failed investments took a toll. As the years went on, O'Toole faced multiple financial issues, including unpaid taxes and mounting debt. Despite his continued acting work, his finances spiraled, and by the time he reached his later years, O'Toole was no longer the golden Hollywood star he once was. In the end, O'Toole's financial situation became so dire that he had to declare bankruptcy. He went from enjoying a life of excess to struggling to make ends meet, living far from the limelight. Though never fully homeless, O'Toole's downfall was a stark reminder of how fame and fortune could quickly vanish when paired with poor decisions. Peter O'Toole eventually regained some of his wealth through later roles and returned to acting in respected productions, but his story remains a tragic tale of a man who, despite incredible talent, could not escape the consequences of his personal and financial mistakes. 10. Norma Desmond, fictional but based on real stars. Norma Desmond, the iconic character from Sunset Boulevard, was once the queen of silent films. In the roaring 1920s, she ruled the silver screen, adored by millions. Her beauty, charm, and powerful presence captivated audiences. But as sound films took over Hollywood, Norma's career came to an abrupt halt. The world moved on, but she couldn't, and wouldn't, let go of her former glory. Refusing to accept that her time in the spotlight had passed, she retreated to her grand mansion in the Hollywood Hills, a lonely relic of her past fame. Norma spent her days reminiscing about her fame and fortune, surrounded by mementos of her heyday, but the money she had once earned dwindled quickly. She continued to live lavishly, unable to cut back on her extravagant lifestyle. Her finances were mismanaged, and without work, she was unable to maintain her lifestyle. She fell deeper into denial, holding on to the belief that a grand comeback was just around the corner. Yet, in the eyes of the industry, she had become a has-been, and the offers for roles never came. As her fortune slipped away, her debts mounted. She stopped paying taxes, and soon the authorities came calling. Norma's mansion was seized, and she was left destitute, forced to sell her belongings just to survive. Eventually, she found herself not only bankrupt but homeless. Once the brightest star in Hollywood, Norma Desmond ended her life as a forgotten, delusional relic of the past, trapped in a mansion that once symbolized her glory. Though a fictional character, Norma Desmond's tragic downfall mirrors the stories of many real stars from Hollywood's golden age who refused to adapt to the changing world, ultimately losing everything they had once worked so hard to achieve. Modern Hollywood, post 1970s stars. 11. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, one of Hollywood's most talented and bankable actors, became a household name in the 1990s with hits like Leaving Las Vegas, Face/Off, and National Treasure. However, behind the glitz and glamour of fame, Cage's financial decisions were far from sound. Despite earning millions, Cage's extravagant lifestyle quickly caught up with him. He indulged in a series of lavish purchases, including multiple homes, at one point owning 15 properties, rare collectibles, exotic cars, and even a $270,000 dinosaur skull. He didn't stop there, he bought 2 islands in the Bahamas and a private jet. The actor also invested in risky ventures without proper financial oversight, resulting in millions of dollars in debt. In 2009, the IRS came knocking, claiming Cage owed millions in unpaid taxes. To make matters worse, his assets were seized to cover the debts. In 2010, Nicolas Cage filed for bankruptcy, having lost most of his fortune. While he avoided total homelessness, he faced a tough financial reality and had to sell many of his properties to settle his debts. Cage's story serves as a cautionary tale of how even the brightest stars can fall when they make reckless financial choices. 12. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, once Hollywood's golden boy, was known for his captivating performances in iconic films like Pirates of the Caribbean and Edward Scissorhands. He had it all: millions in earnings, lavish properties, and a career that seemed unstoppable. However, behind the scenes, his financial world was spiraling out of control. Depp's extravagant lifestyle, fueled by years of overspending, was the beginning of his downfall. He splurged on luxury homes, private jets, and even a $3 million yacht. On top of that, his love for fine wine, art, and rare collectibles led him to make one reckless purchase after another. His monthly spending was estimated at around $2 million, far exceeding his income. Compounding the issue were his legal troubles. Depp's bitter divorce from actress Amber Heard and a series of lawsuits drained his savings. In 2017, Depp filed a lawsuit against his former financial managers, accusing them of mishandling his money, but it was clear that the damage had already been done. By 2018, Johnny Depp's financial problems had reached a tipping point. He faced massive debts, over $40 million in unpaid taxes and loans. His career, once soaring, was now stalled, and his assets were seized to cover his mounting bills. Depp had gone from a multi-millionaire to someone living paycheck to paycheck, desperately trying to rebuild his fortune. Although Depp never became homeless in the literal sense, he faced extreme financial distress, with his lavish property sold off to pay debts. His fall from grace was a stark reminder of how even the wealthiest stars can lose everything due to poor financial decisions, overspending, and unchecked habits. 13. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was once one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors, starring in the hit TV show 2.5 Men. With an estimated salary of $1.8 million per episode, Sheen's life seemed like a dream: luxurious homes, expensive cars, and a lifestyle of excess. However, his rise to fame was marred by reckless decisions. Sheen's personal life became a whirlwind of partying, substance abuse, and public scandals. His well-documented struggles with alcohol and drugs, combined with a divorce from Denise Richards and multiple failed relationships, led to mounting financial problems. Sheen was known for throwing wild parties and spending lavishly, but his lavish lifestyle couldn't sustain itself. In 2011, his increasingly erratic behavior led to his firing from 2.5 Men, which ended his major income stream. The fallout from his infamous public outbursts, such as his winning and Tiger Blood rants, damaged his career. Legal fees, addiction treatments, and unpaid taxes piled up. By 2014, Sheen filed for bankruptcy, reportedly owing millions in back taxes and other debts. His once unstoppable career came to a screeching halt. Although he found some work in smaller projects, his fortune was gone, and he was left struggling with financial instability. Today, Charlie Sheen's story serves as a cautionary tale of how even the brightest stars can fall, caught in a cycle of bad choices, addiction, and overspending. Despite efforts to rebuild his career, the damage to his finances and reputation left him in a state of bankruptcy and near homelessness for a time. 14. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan, once Hollywood's golden girl, was a rising star who had it all: critical acclaim, box office hits like Mean Girls and Freaky Friday, and a lavish lifestyle. But beneath the glitz and glamour, Lindsay's life began to spiral out of control. Her struggles with addiction, run-ins with the law, and public meltdowns became regular tabloid headlines. With multiple arrests, rehab stints, and lawsuits piling up, Lindsay's career started to fade. She spent lavishly, often on partying, shopping sprees, and expensive legal fees. As her income from acting dwindled, her expenses remained high. Lohan faced a series of failed business ventures, including a nightclub that couldn't turn a profit and a failed clothing line. She also faced huge debts from unpaid taxes and personal loans. With no steady income and mounting bills, Lindsay was forced to declare bankruptcy. By 2012, she was nearly penniless, having burned through her fortune. She moved between friends' couches and was often seen in low-rent hotels, living far from the luxury she once enjoyed. Homeless and struggling, Lindsay's story became a cautionary tale of how fame and wealth can quickly vanish in the face of addiction and poor decisions. Though Lindsay has made attempts at sobriety and rebuilding her career, her financial troubles have left a lasting mark, and she remains a symbol of both Hollywood's highs and its devastating lows. 15. Gary Busey. Gary Busey, once a rising star in Hollywood with roles in films like The Buddy Holly Story and Lethal Weapon, saw his life spiral out of control due to a series of reckless decisions, both personal and financial. Busey's downfall began with a series of bad investments and poor money management. After the success of his films in the 70s and 80s, he enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, but failed to keep track of his finances. He spent millions on extravagant homes, cars, and a lifestyle that didn't align with his income. On top of that, Busey struggled with addiction issues, particularly alcohol and drugs, which only worsened his financial situation. By the 1990s, Busey's career stalled, and he found himself facing mounting debts. He filed for bankruptcy in 2012, listing more than $500,000 in debt, and his financial woes continue to worsen. At his lowest point, Busey was living in a modest apartment and faced legal battles over unpaid debts. Though Busey has since made some comebacks, including appearances on reality TV, his story remains a cautionary tale of how fame, fortune, and unchecked spending can quickly disappear, leaving even the brightest stars in the dark. 16. Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid, once a well-known actor with a successful career in Hollywood, saw his life take a dramatic turn due to a series of poor financial decisions, legal issues, and personal struggles. Best known for his roles in films like National Lampoon's Vacation and Independence Day, Quaid earned a fortune throughout the 1980s and 90s. However, his extravagant lifestyle, combined with a lack of proper financial planning, started to drain his wealth. His troubles deepened when he and his wife, Evie, were involved in multiple legal battles, including an arrest for vandalism and issues surrounding unpaid taxes. The couple faced eviction from their home, and Quaid's financial troubles mounted. Despite his earlier success, his reputation had tarnished, and opportunities in Hollywood grew sparse. In the mid-2000s, Quaid's behavior became more erratic. He claimed that he and his wife were being targeted by Hollywood elites and sought refuge in Canada to avoid legal trouble in the US. They were eventually arrested in 2015 for squatting in a home they didn't own. Their financial struggles and bizarre public outbursts only added to the downfall, and Quaid's once promising career was left in ruins. By the time he reached the lowest point of his financial ruin, Randy Quaid had been living in a state of financial despair, facing bankruptcy, and briefly experiencing homelessness. Though he's since worked to recover, Quaid's story is a stark reminder of how fame and fortune can be fleeting, especially when coupled with poor decisions and personal battles. 17. Wesley Snipes. In the 90s and early 2000s, Wesley Snipes was at the peak of his career. He starred in blockbuster films like Blade, White Men Can't Jump, and Demolition Man, earning millions and becoming a household name. However, behind the scenes, Snipes was facing serious financial mismanagement. He was notorious for avoiding taxes and ignoring the IRS, believing that he didn't owe any. In 2008, Snipes was convicted of 3 felony counts of failing to file his taxes, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. This legal battle drained his finances, and he had to sell multiple properties to cover his debts. The once wealthy actor was left with little. After his release from prison, Snipes struggled to regain his career momentum. The massive debt, combined with the loss of film roles, put him in a dire financial position. He filed for bankruptcy in 2010, with millions in liabilities and only a small amount in assets. Although he avoided total homelessness, Snipes' career and wealth were never fully restored. His story serves as a cautionary tale of how fame and fortune can be fleeting when coupled with poor financial decisions and legal troubles. 18. Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds was once the epitome of Hollywood success, handsome, charming, and one of the highest-paid actors of his time. He starred in iconic films like Smokey and the Bandit and Deliverance, making millions and living a lavish lifestyle. He owned multiple properties, including a Florida ranch, and was known for his flashy spending habits. But behind the glitz and glamour, things were slowly falling apart. Reynolds' career took a downturn in the 1980s, and as the roles dried up, so did his income. Still, he continued living a lifestyle that didn't match his dwindling earnings. He spent huge amounts on mansions, luxury cars, and personal indulgences, but without the steady paycheck to support it. His spending spiraled out of control, and in 1996, he filed for bankruptcy. Adding to his financial struggles, Reynolds faced several legal battles, including a messy divorce from his second wife, actress Lonnie Anderson, which drained his finances even further. By the time he reached his 70s, Reynolds had lost most of his wealth and was even forced to sell off his properties. Despite his financial troubles, Reynolds continued to work, taking smaller roles in films and television. However, his debt and poor financial management caught up with him, and in his later years, he faced near homelessness, unable to afford the extravagant lifestyle he once enjoyed. Burt Reynolds' story is a cautionary tale of how fame, fortune, and poor financial choices can lead to a dramatic fall from grace. Although he later regained some financial stability and worked in smaller roles, the once iconic star never fully recovered from his bankruptcy and the personal cost it took on his life. 19. Kim Basinger. Kim Basinger, the stunning blonde bombshell, rose to fame in the 1980s, captivating audiences in films like 9½ Weeks and Batman, 1989. Her career soared, and so did her wealth. However, her financial downfall began with one ill-fated investment. In the 1980s, Basinger made an impulsive decision to purchase Brosselton, Georgia, a small town, for $20 million. The idea was to develop it into a tourist destination. Unfortunately, her plans hit a snag, and when the project failed, Basinger was left with an enormous debt. To make matters worse, she was embroiled in a legal battle after backing out of a contract to star in the film Boxing Helena, a film that ended up tanking. She was ordered to pay $8.1 million in damages, adding even more to her mounting financial woes. Despite earning millions from her career, the combination of failed investments, lawsuits, and extravagant spending eventually led to Basinger filing for bankruptcy in 1993. She had to sell her prized properties, including her share of the town, and it was a public and humiliating fall from grace. While Kim Basinger never became truly homeless, her career and financial stability were seriously compromised, and her once glamorous Hollywood life seemed like a distant memory. Over the years, she slowly regained some of her footing, but her bankruptcy remains one of the most infamous stories in Hollywood's financial history. 20. MC Hammer. MC Hammer, once a global superstar, went from being one of the most successful rap artists of the early 90s to facing bankruptcy and financial ruin. Known for his chart-topping hits like You Can't Touch This and his extravagant lifestyle, Hammer's fame reached its peak in the early 90s. His signature baggy pants and flashy music videos made him a household name, and he raked in millions from album sales, endorsements, and concerts. However, Hammer's downfall began with his lavish spending. He built a $30 million mansion, employed a huge entourage of over 200 people, and lived an extravagant lifestyle that included private jets, expensive cars, and even his own mansion staff. The costs of maintaining this opulent lifestyle became unsustainable, especially as his music career began to slow down. Despite his success, Hammer failed to adjust to the changing music industry and made poor financial decisions. His record sales began to dwindle, and the money from his previous hits dried up. By 1996, he filed for bankruptcy, claiming to owe over $13 million. The extravagant spending, poor investments, and lack of financial planning caught up with him. In the years that followed, Hammer tried to rebuild his career and invest in various businesses, but his financial troubles continued to haunt him. At one point, he even faced the possibility of losing his home and assets. His story is a cautionary tale of how fame, fortune, and reckless spending can turn to hardship, no matter how high you rise. Today, MC Hammer has worked hard to rebuild his life, but his story remains a powerful reminder of how quickly success can slip away when you don't manage your wealth properly. 21. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton was once a global music sensation, with chart-topping hits like Unbreak My Heart and Breathe Again. Her voice captivated millions, and she earned millions from her albums, concerts, and endorsements. But despite her success, Braxton faced severe financial troubles due to a combination of factors. In the late 1990s, she signed a contract with her record label that gave her a very small percentage of album sales. This, combined with extravagant spending on a lavish lifestyle, created a perfect storm for her financial downfall. She accumulated millions in debt, and at one point, she owed over $50 million, largely from unpaid taxes, bad investments, and overspending on her personal expenses. In 1998, Toni Braxton filed for bankruptcy for the first time, claiming she had no choice but to protect herself from creditors. Over the years, Braxton's financial troubles continued, and although she made a successful comeback with new albums and tours, she faced another bankruptcy filing in 2010, further adding to her financial burden. Despite her continued success in music, TV, and theater, Braxton has been open about her financial struggles. Her story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of poor financial planning, even for those with enormous talent and fame. 22. Danny Bonaduce. Danny Bonaduce, best known for his role as the rebellious son, Danny on the hit 1970s TV show The Partridge Family, went from child star to a turbulent adulthood marked by personal struggles, financial troubles, and homelessness. In his early years, Bonaduce earned millions, but his wild behavior off-screen, including drug and alcohol abuse, strained his career and finances. By the 1980s, his life spiraled further out of control. With a string of failed marriages, addiction, and erratic behavior, he made poor financial decisions that drained his wealth. Bonaduce's addiction issues led to a series of bad investments and extravagant spending. In 1994, he declared bankruptcy, revealing that he owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in back taxes, legal fees, and unpaid bills. Despite earning money from appearances and reality TV shows later in life, his financial situation remained precarious. At one point, Bonaduce was even reported to be homeless, struggling to get by. His mental and emotional struggles, including a rocky relationship with the media, only added to his financial downfall. Over time, Danny managed to recover and rebuild parts of his life, but his story is a stark reminder of how fame and fortune can quickly turn into loss without the right choices. 23. Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill, the beloved actor who portrayed Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars saga, was once financially in trouble, despite his massive fame. After the immense success of Star Wars in the 1970s, Hamill's career seemed unstoppable. However, after the original trilogy wrapped, his career stalled. He struggled to find roles that matched the fame of Luke Skywalker and, without the right financial guidance, his wealth began to slip away. By the late 1980s, Hamill faced financial hardship. He was living off his Star Wars royalties, but without consistent work, his expenses quickly caught up. At one point, he was forced to sell his possessions and was deeply in debt, even considering bankruptcy. Hamill also faced personal struggles, including the pressure of being typecast and struggling with mental health. Despite these challenges, he never became homeless as some reports suggest, but he did experience a rough patch where his financial situation seemed bleak. Over time, however, Hamill found his footing again with voice acting and reprising his role as Luke Skywalker in later Star Wars films, which allowed him to rebuild his career and finances. His story is one of resilience, as he eventually came back from the brink, showing that even the brightest stars can face difficult times. 24. Corey Haim. Corey Haim was once one of the most beloved teen stars of the 1980s, known for his roles in films like The Lost Boys and Lucas. He had the looks, the talent, and the fame. But behind the Hollywood glitz, Haim struggled with addiction. He became trapped in a cycle of drug abuse, particularly with painkillers, and battled depression for years. Despite his early success, Haim's personal struggles began to overshadow his career. His once promising acting career began to unravel as his addiction took hold, causing him to lose roles and opportunities. As his financial situation worsened, he started making poor decisions, burning bridges with agents, and spending beyond his means. In his later years, Haim found himself in dire financial straits. Unable to secure steady work, he faced mounting debts, and his addiction spiraled out of control. By the time he reached his 30s, Haim had declared bankruptcy and even faced homelessness at different points, often living in motels or with friends. Haim's story is a tragic example of how fame and fortune can be fleeting, especially when battling addiction and personal demons. His struggles were made worse by the pressure of maintaining his career and public image, and in 2010, he tragically passed away from an accidental overdose. His life serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of fame, addiction, and the consequences of poor financial choices. 25. Margot Kidder. Margot Kidder, best known for playing Lois Lane in the Superman films, was once one of Hollywood's brightest stars. In the 1970s and 1980s, she enjoyed a successful career, appearing in major films and living a lavish lifestyle. However, her personal life took a darker turn as she struggled with mental health issues, particularly bipolar disorder. In the 1990s, Kidder's career began to falter due to her erratic behavior, caused by untreated mental illness and addiction problems. She faced a public breakdown in 1996 when she was found wandering disheveled and confused in a Los Angeles neighborhood. This moment marked the beginning of her downward spiral, both personally and financially. As her mental health continued to deteriorate, Kidder's acting opportunities dried up. She faced financial troubles due to her inability to manage her finances and continued struggles with addiction. By the early 2000s, Kidder had declared bankruptcy, losing the wealth she had accumulated during her heyday. She was also faced with mounting debts, and at one point, she was living in a modest home that she couldn't afford. Despite her financial difficulties, Kidder continued to be a vocal advocate for mental health awareness and recovery. She eventually found stability and was able to rebuild her life, but her earlier years of excess, poor financial decisions, and untreated mental health struggles had led her to the brink of homelessness. Margot Kidder's story serves as a reminder that even those who once graced the silver screen can face real-life struggles, including financial ruin and homelessness, if they don't have the proper support and care. And there you have it. The shocking stories of 25 actors who went from the heights of fame to losing it all due to bad financial decisions, overspending, and personal struggles. It's a harsh reminder that fame and fortune don't always guarantee success or happiness. If you found these stories eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe now and click the bell so you never miss more jaw-dropping stories about Hollywood's biggest stars. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.